Hello and welcome back to the podcast for many reasons. I'll let you in behind the scenes on today's episode. We actually recorded this episode about 5, 6 months ago with today's guest, and then some things happened, and then we've got round to re-recording it today. So Megan 18, thank you for coming back technically onto the podcast.
Thank you. I'm like to think it's because I got invited back. It doesn't really matter what happened the first time, right? I'm sure second time's a charm.
Well, we can't have a bit of a rule that when you come back twice, you're a friend of the show. Simon Ledbetter's on that
Exactly.
list, Toby Martin's on that list, Paul James on that list. So we'll say you're an honorary member on it by
I'll
default.
take it. It's a good club.
So what happened? Obviously, I don't want you to go into too much detail here, but what happened with regard to obviously, life got in the way and of the podcast. How rude. And things happened. So talk us through what kind of went on.
We recorded, I think it was longer than 5 months ago. I think it was just after I went and saw Taylor Swift, which was like about June time, and I had no voice. And we were going to post it out, I think, in early September. And basically, I had a massive U-turn of jobs situation, and suddenly was like, oh God, I feel very exposed, very on edge about what I'm going to do next. And I messaged you and said, Chris, I know you've put lots of hard work into this podcast, but I am currently hiding under a rock. So can you please not post it? And then we talked about it before Christmas, and we sort of felt that maybe let's just do it again rather than using the old stuff. Let's go with the new stuff.
Absolutely right. New and improved. Well, most importantly, how was Taylor Swift? Obviously, just get that out of the way first of all.
Oh, I mean, how was Taylor Swift? I mean, what a girl! What a girl!
No,
Like, yeah, amazing.
I know everyone. So my cousin's been, and one of my friends, who is a guy, went twice, and he said she was absolutely amazing. So there we go. Good advert for Taylor Swift.
Yeah,
Anyway, back to
100%.
the estate agency stuff. Anyway,
Back in the
so
ring.
did you obviously you are a big face in the estate agency world. You're online a lot. You've got a good social media presence, etc. Everyone knows who you are. You've got a great name, which helps as well, which is really cool. Talk us through that sort of vulnerability because obviously it's social media is easy when it's going well, so it's easy to be like, oh, I'm doing really well and I've got this and aren't I cool because I've just climbed Mount Everest and whatever it may be. But when you're on the downside of that and actually some sort of stuff is going on, to put it politely, how hard is that to deal with and how hard you kind of mentioned about kind of hiding under a rock there? Talk us through that.
Well, it's quite a lot, I think. I sat on my situation for a week and then felt that I needed to make sure that I put something out because I wanted to make sure that everyone knew that there's no hoo-has, no dramas, that we just we're in that position. But what I think for me was I felt like I was just permanently being watched. Every day I'd go onto LinkedIn and it would be so and so has viewed your profile. And I'd be thinking, oh my God, why are you viewing my profile? Like what's wrong? Like what's happened? And it became terrifying for me. And that's somebody that's been, and as you know, really pro social media, and I still am. But it was a very, very difficult time for me because what I felt like was that for many years, my whole identity had been defined by my career and my job. And to a level, I'd sort of lost me along that way. And that sounds really corny. And I felt that I'd totally lost my identity and I had no idea who I was, what I represented, and what I wanted moving forward. So I think for me, it was a really difficult period of time. And I think social media is amazing. And I still think it's amazing. But when you're feeling vulnerable, it's a terrifying place.
Is it a case that, social media is regularly kind of referred to as sort of the highlight reel and it's kind of the best of bits and it's, look at this amazing house I've just sold. It doesn't show you kind of crying at your
Yeah.
desk on a Sunday evening sort of thing. Do you think it kind of that's made the world harder in those situations? Because obviously, everyone wants to put a glass half full of it's going really well and it's great and it's oversold and I just sold this great house and I'm amazing sort of thing. But then kind of when stuff hits the fan, not many people hold their hands up and go, yeah, this is a bit crap. What's just happened, sort of thing, or this is an idea, or this has gone wrong, sort of thing, or I'm really upset. But I think there's
Yeah.
kind of like an underrepresentation of that happening online.
Yeah, I agree. Hold on 1 second. Sorry.
That's
Cut
quite
that.
right. We can have
Cut
sneezes
that.
online. That's fine.
Cut that. Um, Yes. So I think that the half the battle is that people only share the good stuff. Now, for people that have, and one of the reasons that I decided to post myself was for my whole kind of brand building. I've always been unapologetically myself, and I always showed my vulnerable side as well. And I've always been really vocal, not necessarily like granular detail of how bad it could be, but I would always say, mental health's not great. These are the things, anxiety, my, second guessing, all of that stuff. So for me, it felt natural to then need to make sure that my narrative and my personal brand was kind of kept along the way as well. And I recorded the video like 3 or 4 times. I sent it to like Toby, for example, and we'd be like, what do you think? And he'd be like, yeah, no, try this. So like I agonize. Normally I'm like a one take wonder kind of gal. And I really agonized about making sure I got the right balance on it. And I'm really proud of myself when I did it. But my God, when it then blew up, I also was like, everyone leave me alone. I'm terrible. I just need to hide under my rock.
So talk me through the sort of the messaging that came back on it, because I watched the video, and obviously I think I've messaged you directly or online saying, best of luck and it'll be all right and whatever else it may be, sort of thing. So talk me through the sort of outreach you got for that, because this kind of, we're going to talk today about personal brand and sort of getting yourself out there, sort of thing. Surely that's like a huge advantage to having a personal brand, is you go out there and you go, look, this has happened with my old employer, sort of thing, and everyone else is like, it's cool, we've got you now. You're kind of like, you're on the radar for so many people so quickly. So I'd imagine that, your inbox with sort of job offers and let's have a coffee and let's have a chat sort of lit up very quickly, I would imagine.
Yeah, I won't lie, it was wonderfully overwhelming. And it was funny where I've ended up job wise came from exactly that, from Sue, and I messaging and her being like, well, let's have a coffee. And she was one of the first people that I saw after I'd sort of kind of started speaking to people, and bless her, she offered me a job very quickly. But because I was totally overwhelmed, I just wasn't in a place to be able to make that decision. And I toyed with the idea of setting up my own business. I toyed with so many different avenues, and I was really lucky that I had like a sort of a load of options, really. And what I actually ended up doing is I landed a couple of consultancy gigs just bizarrely over the course of a few months, and decided that actually, do you know what, I was just going to do that for a few months while I was kind of working out what I wanted next. And that time, I can't tell you how good that time was for me, both for feeling like I needed a little bit of time to heal, but actually reconnecting with like real life, family, friends, my health, and actually putting investments and good structures back in place so that when I've come into my new job, I've got really good boundaries in place. I've got a really good fitness regime in place. I've got a good balance with my family in place. So for me, actually, that 3 months that I took out, whilst I could have come straight into this job, was just so good for me, because it gave me that chance to make sure that I was still at the core the same person.
So if you're going to give someone advice who's listening to this, who I'm not necessarily, not necessarily being made redundant or changing job rent, but is kind of going through a bit of a hard time, would
Yeah.
you suggest they kind of, share that and sort of, kind of look to be caught, or what do you think would be your advice on that side?
I think that is really going to depend on who you are and what kind of brand you've built so far. If you've never done the personal brand thing, posting out on social media for the first time, telling them that you're having a horrible, horrible time, I think could be sometimes a little bit, it can go the other way.
Mm.
I think that for me, it shows the importance of that personal brand, because quite frankly, I wouldn't be in this lovely job that I've got now without doing that. And I do think that that's been a massive backbone of my kind of growth and success within my career. But I think that if you are somebody that feels vulnerable, you don't have to do it either. You don't have to share your every bit with the world. But when you let in people just like a little bit more than, oh, I've just exchanged and completed on this house, people will look after you when you need them to.
Good, excellent. I really, yeah, I think I remember watching that video and thinking how honest and open it was, and I thought, fair play, absolutely fair play to doing that sort of thing. So I think that's a really kind of, brave is definitely the right word, I would say, to look at that.
Thank you. But what I will say as well, in that time, I really learned who my friends were and who my allies were within the industry and who was quite there to sort of almost like ride on your success.
Mhm.
So in a way, it was quite a good culling opportunity as well, because I've really reduced down the amount of people that I like, were giving my time to,
Mm.
because I know who the people that were there when things weren't going so good. So it was quite a fun exercise as well.
Oh, I've got a really good hack for this. So this is like an
Tell
exclusive.
me.
I've never actually talked to anybody about this before, so I'll share this for anyone who's listening into this. So obviously, I occasionally pump out a book now and again, and one of my
Occasionally.
exercises to do when I get a book is I go to like the top people in the industry world, and I'll be like, right, I've got their addresses, or I'll text them saying, "Look, I'm going to send you a present. What's your address?" sort of thing, and I'll send them a book out in the post, and they'll put a message in front saying, thanks for coming on the podcast, or hope you enjoy this sort of thing. And the ones who post on their social media, I'm always like, cool, they've got my back. Like they're like,
Yeah.
great, Chris, thanks very much. The ones that don't, I'm a bit like, okay, like
Yeah.
it's fine. I didn't ask you to do it, but I'm kind of like the ones that never message me back to say, oh, cool, you got a book out, that's really cool, or they don't post anything online. I'm a bit like, okay, that's fine. Like I'm not saying it's a right way answer or a wrong answer here, but for me, it's very much like a bit of a test is the wrong word, but it's like almost like a line in the sand.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, you've got my back, but you've not quite got my back quite that much. So that's a little thing
Yeah,
I
I think
do a
it's I
book.
think we should all celebrate each other as well.
Yeah.
Like, I've had your book in the post, and I've had Elaine's book, and our friend Toby's just launched his business.
Yep.
You know, I'm not being funny. There's enough work for us all.
Yep.
If suddenly I decided to write a book, I mean, I'm not going to, but if I ever had that inclination, I know that 100% that you would back it. But yeah, it's we've got to support each other, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it is an expression. People don't punch down, people punch up. Isn't that the expression? So you kind of
Yeah,
well.
but it is interesting because what I've learned over the last few years is that it's really easy when you grow your personal brand to get a bit of an ego,
Mm,
and it's something that me and Toby talked about at Prop X, about making sure you check your ego at the door, and you can really see it. And I do think that kind of thing is a testament to that, is whether your friendship is a legitimate friendship or whether it's a commercial friendship.
yep, 100%. Excellent. No more fake friends. Anyway, so let's talk about is there a better expression than personal brand yet? Because it's not a great expression, personal brand. Everyone kind of vomits a little bit in their mouth, and it's like my personal content strategy, or my like I don't know, my lifestyle something. I mean, it sounds even more wanky, excuse the expression, when I put it that way. So let's talk about personal brand. So obviously you are very good, very active on places like TikTok, for example. So talk me through. So first of all, why TikTok? Why would you be on there? What's in it for me as an estate agent or personal brand builder? Why should I want to even be on TikTok in the first place?
So I think it's really important. So there's two questions there, really. I think that personal branding needs a better word, 100%. Let's start the formal petition from today. But I didn't intend to build my personal brand. And this is something that people often say to me. They're like, oh, yeah, but you're so good at doing this and da da da. And I'm like, yeah, but it wasn't a plan. It wasn't a strategy. I didn't I know people do. So I didn't wake up one day and go, oh, I want to suddenly be on the BBC political podcast, so I'm going to do this. It came from a really natural place where I just suddenly felt the need to sort of share more about what I was doing. And, I got the position with Arla as an exec, and, I had more things to talk about. And so I was posting more and more. And it just sort of went like flame to fuel. It went, but it was not intended at all. There was no intention to do it. It was purely fluke. And then the TikTok thing was a kind of a product of that fluky outcome as well, because we basically sat on not like a proper social media like training course by Property Mart, but basically the execs all got together one evening with a glass of wine, and one of the girls was very good at it, and so she kind of talked us through some of the tips and tricks. And she said the next big thing is going to be TikTok, and bearing in mind that this is going back now, I don't know, 2021. And I thought, fuck it. What's the worst that can happen? I'm just going to make a video, see if I can get anything on there. And the first video went like all right, like nothing, viral. But then someone asked me a question in the comments, and one of the things I always do on TikTok is if someone asks me a question, I will respond back to it with a video. And so I responded back to the video about why landlords should take pets and properties. And it just went, and it went viral. And I still get clicks on it now, like likes on it and comments on it, even now, 3 years on. And it's really funny because I look so much younger when I look at the videos come up on my feed. And it was just literally, there wasn't anybody out there. Now, there are tons of people that do TikTok way better than I do now. But I think that the reason why people were interested in what I had to say was because I was one of the first. And I basically was the one that went, do you know what, I'll just give it a go, because like, what's the worst that can happen? So I'm definitely by no stretch the best at TikTok, but I think I was just the brave one at the start, really.
I remember looking. So I don't go on TikTok. Full disclosure, I don't go on TikTok for one very big reason. I'm very aware that it's going to work me out very quickly, and I'll be like scrolling. I'll be like, oh yeah, I'm one of those guys now. So I'm very aware it's going to work me out too quickly. So it terrifies me slightly. So I was researching John Savage's TikTok stuff because he does a lot of stuff on there, and I think like a huge proportion of John's content is literally just replying back to questions. People just literally
Yeah,
put questions
it
on his
is.
things, and it's literally just John sat on the sofa replying back to a question about X, Y, and Z, and then someone else asks a question, and he just responds back. Then it's just him like on his sofa, or he's like walking the dog, and it's just kind of like that interactive with people. They ask this, I answer it, sort of thing. So if someone was sort of just logging into their brand new shiny TikTok account today, and they put their profile picture of them with their thumbs up and whatever else it may be, where to start after that? Where do you go to with regard to kind of finding content? Because it's all well and good pointing content saying, oh, we've just sold a house, we've just listed a house, but it's a bit like yawn, you're an estate agent, Kelsa Breeze. Where should people be going to kind of like for inspiration or topics to talk about? Where should they start?
Well, I think full disclosure, when you become a sort of Q&A estate agent on on TikTok, full disclosure, they will want to hate you. And that I think you just have to appreciate that's just the stance that people will take. So for me, I think the best way to think about it is, right, what questions was I asked this week at work? What's a break clause? Can I have a dog? Can I have a cat? You know, what do we think the property market's going to do in the next year? What do we think is going to be the impact of the renters' rights bill? Whatever those questions you're getting at work, if somebody has asked them, that means somebody wants to know the answer. So I think a really easy place to start with content is, what was I asked? I don't think you need to overthink like whizzy graphics. There's some people that are really skilled in video, like people like Toby, for example. Both of Toby and I are known for doing our video work, but they're totally different videos. Like mine's very raw, very like off the cuff, very natural. Toby's is like very cleverly, scripted and created and put together. And both are great. You just need to work out which camp you want to sit in. And it's absolutely fine which camp you go in. But for me, I think that overthinking your content can sometimes be the biggest barrier. You could literally just make content off of your blog articles that you've pushed out and make it into a video. It's like, just don't overthink it. Just find something that someone's asked you.
And how do you find what's popular, trending, and kind of what's kind of the direction? Because obviously, I suppose there's a balance between getting views for the sake of views' sake, and then there's kind of getting views because obviously the goal of the business is to make money and get clients and whatever it may be. Like it might be great that someone in Australia watches our videos sort of thing, but they're not going to be a client ever. They're not going to sell their property sort of thing. So
Yeah.
that's them sort of thing. So where's the balance between sort of like trending and going, oh my God, I got 1 million views on this video. But actually, if I look at the mapping about where they all are, like they're all in like South America, you're like, great, okay. So
Yeah.
where's sort of the balance between sort of going for those ultimate views, but then balance that between sort of hyper locally sort of marketing?
My advice would be, don't chase the views and don't chase the likes, because you're absolutely spot on. Don't get me wrong, I've got some, that have got 100,000 views on it and plus, which is lovely for my ego. But ultimately, I get probably just as much, from the ones that are 1 or 200. We have a habit of being like, oh, I only got 200 views. Well, I'm not being funny. If I held a landlord event tomorrow and 200 landlords turned up, I'd be over the moon. So you have to reframe your headspace on it. Chasing viral videos, for me, it's an ego boost rather than actually helping your work. Now, in terms of TikTok, it is harder to create that kind of hyper local following, but it is possible because I've got landlords off the back of it. But it's harder to direct, I think. I think Instagram is sort of more it's easier to create that local marketplace because I think people are more likely to follow you on TikTok.
Mm.
Sorry, on Instagram. So I think if you chase the likes and chase the views, you're just going to start being very unhappy very fast. Whereas if you take the time to think about the local content, but also like little settings like on TikTok, you can like set your location, for example. So that'll push that local following again, making sure that you're actually doing that. But what I will say is with TikTok, and I think probably with all of the social media, is are you doing it for your personal brand or are you doing it for the business that you work for? And I think they're different things because my TikTok I originally set up just because I didn't really put much thought into it, as I've already alluded to. But as that went on, it was harder to align a business with something that was already in place. So for me, it's almost like Lettings in a nutshell works at these companies as opposed to this is somebody that works at that company. But in a way, I think people respond better because it's me not selling anything and it's me just giving out good advice.
Without sounding too deep here, is it about having sort of a bigger purpose for your social media account than just sort of like, let's get some followers off the back of it and let's get some exposure? It's kind of like, so I can speak from the purpose of my social media account is A, people to know who I am and who the business is and
Yeah.
how we can help sort of thing. But the second part of it, 90% of it is just, free advice, just free advice. That's what we're doing. Our
Yeah.
purpose is to help estate agents. And it's like, great, if you like our free stuff, then you'll really like our stuff. You can pay for behind the scenes sort of thing. So that's kind of our purpose. Is it about having that sort of purpose as a lettings agent example and saying, actually, my job is to educate landlords locally, to educate tenants, to all this sort of information give. And the benefit of that is we'll get some clients off the back of it and some good views off our videos rather than people having it upside down where they're like, well, I'll get the views first of all, and I'll get a million views on this, and then the rest will kind of come off the back of it. Do you think kind of that's the way to look at it?
It's a really good question, Chris. Because the thing is, like, I feel like I could give you some waffle about all of my intentions for my TikTok account, but I just think it will be a load of crap. Like the reality was, I just thought I'd give it a go and see what kind of came of it. But with time, like one of the things that I think helped me with, like, for example, my presidency campaign, was that I felt that I was almost one of the faces showing the public that we're not that bad. you know we are quite trustworthy, not everybody but most of us, and that we are good people. And like for me, I have a massive issue with the way that the public perceive our industry, and I know that I've got strong feelings about how that should change and how we can change that. But for me, I know that I sit there as a public face on a big platform going, let me help you with your problems, with no hidden agenda. But the nice thing about it is, as a result of that kind of goodwill, there has been landlords that have said to me, oh, actually, I saw your video on tax. I actually have a portfolio. Would you be interested in helping me? So it for me, I did it for good intentions of almost, I just wanted to help. But I appreciate that's not really going to give you the secret sauce to making tons of money. But I do think that you can be strategic with it in the sense of making sure that you are intertwining different brands and different things. But that obviously is something that I would have to do retrospectively as opposed to what I was doing as I was going.
So for me, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I personally think the secret sauce is helping people with no expectation
Mm,
of anything coming back off it. So it's just saying to people, look, this is the information, do what you like with it. I don't get paid to produce TikTok or YouTube videos, wherever it may be. I have kind of a full-time job, kind of like a proper thing behind the scenes, which kind of funds my lifestyle, etc. But for this is just a give exercise, and it's just me trying to help out and be a good person to support people. I think people will see that and they're like, yeah, I want to work with someone who shamelessly gives kind of without any
yeah.
expectation coming back. So
But also, like, what I will say is you can monetize TikTok. I'm on the creator fund now, so I do make money from my TikTok account. And I'll be honest, I'm not, being sent to the Bahamas on like a brand deal anytime soon. But I make a little bit of money out of it, and I pump it back into the Property Mart Trust, which is a charity that I am a trustee for, as you know. So you can make a little income from it. Now, if I was to put more effort into it, I mean, I could make some good money. But I laugh because I get sent really random stuff as well. I've got sent bedding and kitchen roll. I mean, it's not quite a Ferrari, but for now, I'm going to take it.
Even Mr. Beast has to start somewhere, I'm sure. So,
Look, honestly, like he might have millions of pounds, but I've got some very high thread count, duvets.
oh, yeah. And that's what matters. That's what really matters.
Who's the winner, really?
Absolutely. So talk me through how you stay consistent because I have obviously lots of video calls with lots of clients, which is great. And lots of them kind of start, especially this sort of, beginning part of the year sort of thing. They're like, new year, new me. I'm going to post on social media every day. And that sort of initial sort of energy, momentum, whatever you want to call it, kind of wails over time. And then it gets to like a few months later in the year and they're like, actually, yeah, I won't do it today. I'll do it tomorrow. And then eventually you haven't posted for the last like 6 weeks. So how do you stay consistent even when sort of the results maybe don't reflect your hard work behind the scenes?
Well, firstly, I think what you have to remember is that posting every day is not a social media strategy.
Mhm.
And that's what people have to remember. Just posting every day is not a social media strategy. It's just you posting every day. Now, a strategy would be making a campaign, a nurture campaign, a series, whatever it looks like. But just posting drivel because you know that you have to post doesn't count. Like I've reached the point now where less is more, and I get way more engagement because I post out way less. So if I go and start posting out drivel, that's just going to stop. So you have to stop just posting every day because you think that's a strategy, because it's not a strategy. Secondly, yes, you're right, consistency is key, but being realistic about that consistency is also key. So for example, like I've taken a massive backseat on my personal TikTok over the last 6 months because I didn't have the headspace for it, and B, I took on a new job, so frankly something had to give. So that's the thing that I park. But scheduling is the key. If you sit down and think about a series, so, for example, I've just done it for the Swindon Home Finders business page. I created a video which has got, I think, 5 questions about the Renters' Rights Bill, and created I think it's like 2.5 minute reel. So I've posted that. And then now, every week, that video, but just one question will go out as a series. So I've made one video and I'm going to get 6 posts out of it.
Mhm.
So it's just about being smart with your content, and not being boring with your content, I think is key as well, because if you're just putting drivel out there, you're going to get bored super quick. I think blocking time and making sure that you understand that creating content isn't a waste of time. It's part of business generation. And if you believe in business generation, then you should be backing yourself to take time out and booking it in your diary. Now, if you look at your brand, Chris, before you went and set up, I didn't know who you were, but suddenly you're everywhere, but giving out good content. And you're like, oh, he's a nice guy. Like, let's connect. And, you get to know people. But that is because you've gone, this is what I want to do. This is how I'm going to do it. And this is my strategy for it.
Love that. So I had, it was a good moment. So I put a video on social media about a month ago now, and it got about 100,000 views across all platforms, which for me like outstrips
It's
any
really
video
good.
I
Yeah.
put online. And the sad side was it was nothing in any way, shape, or form to do with my work or estate agency in any way, shape, or form. But actually, I looked at that and I was like, that's really kind of like a red rag to a bull for me because I'm like, actually, if my content is good enough, the algorithm is there to go, actually, you can go up to 100,000 views or whatever it may be. But at the moment, your content isn't that standard where we can get at that sort of level. So for me, I'm like, actually, kind of like the man is showing me to say, actually, if you get your content up to this level, we will show it to more people. Whereas
Yeah.
historically, I've kind of been like, oh, I'm kind of like, there's a bit of a glass ceiling and it's just little old me and whatever it may be. And I can't get 100,000 views. But to get a video that was nothing to do with the state agency, granted, go to that many people sort of thing, I'm like, okay, it's doable. I just need to improve my content enough and put enough work into it where the algorithm goes, yeah, you pass the vibe and you can kind of come on board sort of thing. So
Do you think, was that the video of you telling your family about your
it
engagement?
was, yeah, yeah, even
Yeah.
there we go. You're one of the
So,
100,000.
but do you know why I think that does well?
Yep.
They're like, oh, that's the nice guy that we see on the videos. And I think that sometimes it's nice to like just drop a little bit of personal into it. And that's where it kind of takes us full circle
Yep.
back to what makes the personal brand work. Is it's all well and good posting out really informative content all the time. But if they don't know who you are and what you represent, now we all know that you're going to get married and you've got a very beautiful fiance. And that's lovely. I'll be honest, I was really excited when I first watched the video because I thought you were announcing a baby. And I
No,
love a
definitely not.
baby. Um, I love a baby. So I thought that was what was coming. But it was very exciting to watch because it's a little glimpse into the life that we don't get to see as your colleagues and as your industry friends. And I think for me, if you can let a little bit in of your personal life, that's what makes your brand authentic. But the caveat to that is one of my biggest, like, not I guess my fears is that when my social media began to climb, so did the amount of weird people that would hit my DMs. And very quickly, I stopped sharing my son's face on my work social media. Now you're on my personal Facebook, so you will see pictures of Dex, but I won't accept invites from people that I don't know or aren't friends with. So like my Facebook's locked in and protected, as is my personal Instagram, because there's a lot of weirdos out there, but you can still let people into your life without like compromising your family, I think.
Yeah, 100%. And the funny thing is, so my partner Bronte, who stars, is the starring role of the video,
Star
obviously.
of the show.
She had a video call about a week after the video went out. Bear in mind, she wasn't tagged in any way, shape, or form. I never tag her in anything. And she had a video call with a client, and she was like, "Oh, so how did you hear about me?" He was like, "Oh, I saw your video where you got engaged, and
Oh,
that's it." And I was like, "You weren't tagged in that in any way, shape, or form." And he literally said
crazy.
almost exactly what you said then. It was like, "It's really nice to see the personality, the person behind the scenes, sort of thing. You're not that sort of person I want to work with, all this sort of stuff." So you're absolutely right. Sort of lifting the lid on your sort of personal life can be a good place to go with it. I should point out
That's brilliant.
this is a very good sort of thing when it comes to sort of the women in retail property and women in estate agency sort of angle. I, apart from the odd like marriage proposal and people saying I'm beautiful and whatever else it might be, I have had zero weirdos on social media in any way, shape, or form since I started social media. Whereas it seems like on the more of the female side of things, it's like a weirdo fest by the sounds of it, which probably sounds like a podcast in itself. So how do you sort of deal with that sort of negative side of the social media stuff? Because obviously you mentioned earlier that when you go on TikTok and you put stuff out there, people are going to go kind of glass half empty and they're going to go, oh, bloody estate agent, and what do you know? And you're this and you're that. How do you mentally deal with that? Because it's not nice to look at your phone and see a message being like, all right, darling, this and all right, darling, that. And do you want, yeah, you're like, no, thank you very much. So how do you deal with that?
I mean, those are the nice ones. And it's when you get pictures that you weren't asking for. That's the when it all goes a little bit out the wrong way.
Yeah.
I think you can get some nasty comment. I had one really, really bad experience that was quite a big learning curve for me quite early on. And I put a video up and it was like there was this trend on TikTok that was like, what would you do if you were of the opposite sex, what would you do with that day? And it was like, like men being like, well, I do, and I put this like tongue-in-cheek thing that was like, oh, well, I just get paid the same as a man. Like referring to the fact that as an industry, we've got something like a 40% gender pay gap even now. It's disgraceful. And like and I cannot tell you how bad it got. Like I had rape threats, death threats, like it was atrocious what these people were writing. In the end, I actually just took it down, which I actually don't know if was the right message to give, because I don't think it was a bad video. I think it was just a bit tongue in cheek. But I learned very quickly of the fact that TikTok isn't just our friends being nice and people that are really, grateful for advice, that you are getting some of the dregs of society. I think for me, the ones that make me uncomfortable, I had one guy message me, and it was when I was working at Haslam's, and opposite Haslam's, like pretty much opposite, was a walkabout. Do you remember the pub
Yep.
bar? I don't know if they still exist. I have no social life, so it's hard to know. And he was like, oh, how about I wait here at Walkabout for when you finish work? And I thought, you've worked out that I work opposite the Walkabout. And that made me feel really, really vulnerable. So like I've stripped my TikTok quite back. So I don't have like my last name on there or anything now, just to make it like a little bit harder to work out who I am. Because that wasn't nice. That did feel a little bit too far. And then, as I said, on LinkedIn, unfortunately, some of the men of our industry do not behave particularly well. So yeah, some of the things you do get are pretty bad. But my advice is, when people are arguing in the comments about, the morality of property, for example, I just let them crack on. I don't get involved with it. I let them crack on and just think this is doing wonders for my algorithm.
Yeah, 100%. Well, first of all, I'm sorry you've gone through that. First of all, I feel like I should apologize for all male kind. First of all, today. Sorry, a lot of them are dicks, basically. I did have a chat with my partner a couple of weeks ago, and she's just started posting on social media with her work, and I said, look, it's going to be a matter of time before you get a picture, a DM, a message sort of thing. And I was like, just be aware that I'd imagine that's kind of part of the territory. So first of all,
Yeah,
sorry you've
it
gone
shouldn't
through that.
be.
No, I agree, and I think I've seen it before with quite a few people where they've literally just taken a screenshot and just put it up as a post, and I'm like, fair play. I think
Yeah, I've contemplated it. I had a really good one recently, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm a surveyor," and and I said, "Oh, who's your regulatory body?" And he blocked me instantly. So apparently, if you ask them their regulatory body really quickly, that'll kill it.
that's the
Because
magic.
apparently,
That's the one.
that's the magic. They don't want their regulatory body to know what they're up to.
There we go. And there's one thing you take from today's podcast. Megan, thank you so much for coming back on the podcast. It's been really
My
great.
pleasure.
Thank you so much. It's been really, really good. Thank you so much.
Thanks.